Welcome. A little word about setting up the video you're about to watch. It is the second computer really that I dug into to try to make work. Well, the third, but besides the point. The first was the 2009 iMac that I had purchased for Polly, my mother-in-law, which came back to me on her death. I may have mentioned, of course, there was a fire that destroyed my home some 3 years ago, allowing all the computers that I had. I purchased a 2015 MacBook Pro. Very good machine. I've been very, very happy with that. I did upgrade the SSD in it to 1 terabyte, and it's been really good. Once I moved into this place, I ended up a couple months in getting myself a 2015 iMac, which is a great machine. The Fusion drive, okay, but it's a 2 terabyte Fusion drive, and that's where I would do most of the really serious work on a computer that I would do. I've developed this thought: couldn't I get a Mac Mini, have it here in the master bedroom? It'd be nice to check email, get texts when they come in, check Facebook, watch a YouTube video, etc. Nothing serious. So I set out to buy on eBay the least expensive, oldest Mac Mini that I could get that would actually run the most current operating system. I believe at that point it was still Sierra. It may have been High Sierra, but I think it was Sierra. So I, in my research, discovered that the one that would fit the bill would be the 2010 Mac Mini. So I got one, found it really cheap. Yay. Set it up. Now, it only had 4 gig of RAM, and it ran Sierra and High Sierra too. Okay, but it was really, really slow. Then Mojave came out, and suddenly that machine is no longer supported. I figured, well, okay. I bought the bullet. By then it's 2018. I got a 2018 Mac Mini. Baseline, I don't think it was just going to go in here. I wish I had that to do over again. I would have spec'd it up higher because it's a surprisingly capable machine. But I did. There it goes. As I was reading more and learning more about computers, I discovered that Mac Mini actually had more capabilities, because you could upgrade the RAM very, very easily. So I did that, and it made a huge difference. I set the darn thing up in the guest room as an auxiliary computer. At that point, it's not even a secondary computer, it's a fiduciary computer. I don't know what you'd even say about it. Then, having worked on Polly's 2009 iMac and replaced the optical drive with a 1 terabyte solid state drive, I figured, okay, what can you do with the Mac Mini? And I discovered, Now, various issues. This Mac Mini, one of those I got it as incredibly cheap as I did. Someone had attempted an upgrade. They put an SSD in it, 128 gig, but I didn't really care because at that point it was a tertiary computer anyway. But the fan ran on high all the time, which was kind of annoying. I did discover when I took it apart, I had bought the OSC Data Doubler, and I was going to replace the optical drive with a 1 terabyte SSD. Okay, that will solve all of the issues. I did discover that whoever had done that upgrade hadn't hooked up the fan sensors from the SSD correctly. Once they were hooked up, everything was fine. It was quite a thing. You got to take the computer completely apart in order to put in the data doubler. But I did it. Everything seemed to be working. Okay. Plugged the computer in, booted it up, opened disk utility to format the new drive. It wouldn't format. It showed up there, but it wouldn't format. It just wouldn't. I ended up calling OWC support, and I had a really great tech there who worked with me at quite some length. But nothing seemed to work. Finally, I got an enclosure, took the thing apart again, took the drive out, put it into the enclosure, plugged it into the 2018 Mac Mini, and formatted the drive. Everything was fine. I tried putting in eventually, when I put the drive back in to the data doubler, reassembled the old Mac Mini, nothing. It wouldn't read. It wouldn't even show up at this point. So I tried a 512 gigabyte SSD that I happen to have. Put that in. That wouldn't work. Now, what actually did work, I ended up changing, I'm not quite sure why I did it, maybe it was just to try something. I changed the SATA flex cable that would originally have connected the optical drive and used it to connect the new 1 terabyte SSD. I then put it together with that 512 gigabyte drive. Everything was fine. So I took it apart again, put the 1 terabyte drive back in. That's where this video kicks in. I am in the process of taking it apart again, putting in the 1 terabyte SSD. So I hope you enjoy it and have a great day. Well, I have made some progress on, this is the old Mac Mini. I managed to put in a 500 gig solid state drive, which got recognized when I booted it up. That was a good sign. So I have once again formatted the 1 terabyte drive, this guy here. I'm going to try to put that in and see if in fact it will be recognized. It may very well. The one other thing I did was to change the SATA flex cable that connects the drive. So we may have some progress. The tools that will be used here, 2 torque screwdrivers, a T6 and a T8, nylon spudger or pry tool. And this little thing here is used to move the logic board out. It should be pretty simple to do, but of course it never is. It's obviously so small, things are just so tightly packed in there. But we'll see what happens. All right, on the back of the Mac Mini, there are 2 dots on the case, black one and white one, and there's a little white dot on the cover. These 2 dimples here, you can put your thumbs in it and turn it counterclockwise, up it comes. All right, first step is to remove the memory. These are the RAM chips. There's 16 gig in there, which is the most this computer will hold. pops up. Second one here, 2 8 gig sticks. Off they go. All right, next comes the fan, which is secured by 3 T6 screws, which are supposed to stay in. They don't very well, but they're supposed to. Okay, that's loose. Seems loose. Now, first point where one must be careful. Not quite loose over here. Yes. The fan is connected to the logic board. That's the power connection there. And we must carefully remove that. Unfortunately, these things tend to come out a whole lot more easily than they go in. All right, almost, and there's one of those screws that was supposed to stay in and didn't. That's okay. All right. There's a little plastic cowling here that's held in by one screw. It's kind of an annoying screw, particularly since the magnetization on the bit of the T8 is not as strong as T6 is not as strong as it might be. But we have that out. Lift that a little bit. Out she comes. Okay. Now this is the grid covering and the Wi-Fi antenna. And those are not T6s. These are the only T8s that are in use. There we go. Now, there's also one over here, which is going to have to come out eventually in order to get the logic board out. So while I've got the T8 in my hand, those are the only T8s in the entire place. Now, once again, one must do this rather carefully. Right there is where the Wi-Fi antenna connects to the computer. Obviously, we don't want to damage that in any way. We're gonna, come on. There we go. And off goes that. All right, progress is being made. Back to the T6. Should be back in the T6. Screw holding the logic board in place. All right, now There are connectors, some of which can come up now. These are the SATA connectors for both the boot SSD there and the secondary SSD there. This is a heat sensor. There are two more heat sensors. Okay. Now at this point, we'll probably find it a little easier to get at these last two. There are two little holes here. This whole thing here is the logic board. And start sliding that out. Now we don't want to slide it any further out because we have to disconnect this heat sensor. And this, I believe, is the power cable. All right, there goes that. Now, we can come a little bit further out. And this is the connection between the power supply and the logic board. Those cables are a little more securely connected. That needs to come out. That one can be a pain to get back in. All right. And now we slide out the logic board. Okay. And we can then take the boot SSD, which is only 128 gigs, put that down there. Now, proceeding further, we have to remove the power supply. There's a retaining clip. And you've got to turn the plug on it to the side to get it out. And then there we go. And then finally, the screw securing what used to, this is actually the optical drive bay, DVD drive. All right, and that's out. And with that screw out, this should simply, wow. Now there's the 500 gig, actually 512 solid state drive, which we hope to replace with this 1 terabyte drive. Okay, so in order to do that, we first have to get the drive carrier off it. Four screws holding that on.
this last one, there's some wires here that need to be moved aside. Not quite. All right, and off comes that. All right. Now, one thing that does make sure that's okay. Yes, it is. Doing well. All right. Then we have to remove this heat sensor. Which we're going to place in approximately the same sense. Hopefully this tape will survive a little bit. If I keep moving it, it definitely won't. Okay. Going to give us a little more room with it. And it should still work fine. The solid state drives don't really get that hot anyway. Okay, now there are 2 screws, and these are actually Phillips. They're not. This is something called a data doubler. The point of this is to hold either a hard drive or a solid state drive, 2.5 inch, and get it to take up the space intended to be taken by the optical bay. Pretty clever, actually. There's one. And there's 2. All right. And now, I should be able to unplug it. Put that aside. Take the 1 terabyte. Plug that right in. So far, so good. And secure that in place in the data doubler. One. Nice that they color coded these so you could quickly tell the Phillips from the Torxes, but hey, I should be grateful it exists. And I will be if it works. to line up is a little bit touchier. There we go. 2. That's the wrong screw. Pardon me. Yeah, that was it. Go. And finally, okay, this is a pain. All right. Now there are 2 holes here in the drive carrier that are supposed to line up with 2 mounting pins on the inside. But of course, once you put the drive carrier in, you can't really see those mounting pins. So it's kind of, that should happen. That should happen. Yeah, on that lines, if that is lining up, then we should be good. All right. Of course, that's probably the easiest thing to get in because there's actually room inside this case. As we start to add more and more components here, this gets trickier and trickier. This is the power supply going back in. And again, there are little notch things. You know, by golly, I think that pretty much has it. Could I be getting better at this? Nah. But again, if these two holes are lined up like this, it has to be set right. Of course, then wouldn't this screw be going in? Why are you fighting me so? Out you come. Oh. I see the problem. Things are not lined up. Well, I certainly screwed that up. Screwed that up. Just come out. Just come out. This would happen. It's going so well, too. In there like a rock. See, if I don't get that up, I can't put this power supply back in. This is all a result of me being stupid. Well, I'm going to stop this video and see what I can do here. So, hang on. Okay, so what's up here? The screw got jammed in there. Through the judicious application of a little bit of brute force, I was able to get the screw out, and nothing appeared damaged. It went back in once I finally got the power supply in there. So the power supply is in. Now it does get a little funny. Doesn't everything always get a little funny? We must, first of all, get the boot SSD in there. Now, one of the little problems here, there are a couple of mounting pins here and here that are, again, supposed to go into slots, which you cannot possibly see. Now that looks good. Famous last words. I may have buried something. Nope. That's there all right. Okay. Quite a bit higher up. Yeah, I did see a suggestion that if you turn the mini on end, give yourself a little bit more room. Did that do it? So easy to lose. You know, I think that actually did it. So we're going to see what happens when the logic board goes in. That seems pretty decent. Okay, that heat sensor's there. That heat sensor is there. So is that one. And the two power cords. Alrighty then. Extra pin there. Okay. In with the logic board. Aha. I won't speak too soon, but that's actually going in easier than it often has in the past. Now, I had mentioned this a little earlier. One of the big problems tends to be getting the power supply plugged back into the logic board. Get it lined up. There, that's it. I think that's it. Maybe I am getting better at this. You got it. How about that? Okay, now keep leaning in here. I didn't put my contacts in So I can actually see for close work a little bit better without them. But I got to get like right on top of it. So sorry if I'm getting in the way here. You go over there. Come on. That's not right. Nope. Don't. Okay, there you go. Yeah. One down. Okay. These guys up. And pushing the board. All right. One heat sensor. And I do this because it's fun. 2 heat sensors. You know, with solid state drives, these heat sensors are not as vital. It's the hard drive spinning that tends to build up most of the heat. But if they're not connected, well, there's the boot drive. Well, okay. Those are both in. The heat sensors are all in. The power is in. Push that over there a bit. Okay. And that's the fan sensor. All right. This could actually work. It's not impossible. All right, now. Bing. Popped right in. Make sure that cord tucks in there. Now. All right. Now this starts to get a little tricky. All But I think I actually got the boot SSD in there. Oh, wait a minute. That's got to be the T6. Yep. The only T8s in this whole process. No, I'm wrong. I thought maybe that was lining up better. But I've taken this apart and put it back together. Gosh, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think this is like the 5th time. Wi-Fi has always worked in the past. Okay. Let's see what it is. This has never happened. All right. Oh! I was using the T6 to try to drive a T8. They don't look that different. That's... Here we are. Yep. All right. So much for getting better at this. Get in there, please. Yes, just like that. Okay. Oh. Wait a minute. Back to T6s. So many little tiny screws, which are just like ever so slightly different. Okay. Cowling. It's in place. I hate putting this screw back in. Just go to the right place. There we go. Yeah, it actually works fine once you get it in place, but the head of the screw has to get past the edge of the case right there. Arg. Okay, and then we're just about there. All right. Now the last connection, power to the fan. Not to be confused with power to the people. All right. Well, that too. Come on. Go in your place. All right. This will work. It will work. There's one. Two. And three. And then finally, the memory. Okay, that's slotted in. The bottom is always more of a problem. Top one usually just pops in. All right. Turned it clockwise to seal it. All right, and it looks like a Mac Mini. We'll have to see if it actually boots up, but yep, we should be doing okay.